So welcome everybody to our very last video before summer vacation. Kind of been a wild year, huh? I sure have enjoyed you joining me for all of these stories that we've been reading. I've really enjoyed picking out stories and what I was going to share with you, and I hope you enjoyed it too. Today, for our last video, I'm going to make a plea. This whole entire week, we've been talking about things we can do over summer vacation. We can go to the ocean, we can build a sandcastle, we can catch fireflies, we can play in the rain in our red rubber boots. The other thing I want to encourage you to do is to read. I know, you just spend all this time reading and doing things for your class. But the most important thing that you can do this summer is to continue to read. 10 to 20 minutes a day. Mrs. Haley would be so happy, and so would your teachers. Choose a book that you like. When the libraries open up again, there you go. It's perfect. You can get them online. You can watch my videos. In fact, I believe that I'm going to try to do a story time each week. One day a week, I'm going to read a story to you. So that could be one of your days for reading. Even if you listen to a story, it'll help you become a better reader. So that's my plea for you. Don't stop reading. It's so important. Look at all the things you can learn. Remember, I always ask you, why do we read? And you say to understand and remember. And when we understand and remember, then we're learning too. All right, boys and girls. So down in the description, I'm going to include some information about summer reading. I'm also encouraging you to subscribe to my channel because then you'll know when my new videos come out so that you can watch those each week. All right, thank you so much for being here this summer. Remember, continue reading. And the next thing we're gonna do is I'm gonna read kind of a big story. This is kind of a long story, but I think it'll be perfect for what my plea for you is. This is called Librarian. And like I said, it's a bit of a long story, but I think you can do it. And you know what you could do? If you start reading a little bit of it and you need to stop and do something else and come back to the rest later, you can. But it's a longer story, but I think you'll enjoy it. So remember, have fun, enjoy your summer, get outside, catch some fireflies, and never stop reading. Thanks, boys and girls. Librarian by Michelle Knudsen and illustrated by Kevin Hawks. There's the lion. See him? One day, a lion came to the library. He walked right past the circulation desk and up into the stacks. Mr. McBee ran down the hall to the head librarian's office. "Miss Merriweather," he called. "No running," said Miss Merriweather, without looking up. But there's a lion," said Mr. McBee, "in the library." "Is he breaking any rules?" asked Miss Merriweather. She was very particular about rule breaking. "Well, no," said Mr. McBee, "not really." "Then leave him be." So what did she care about? Rules. The lion wandered all around the library. He sniffed the card catalog, he rubbed his head against the new book collection, and then he padded right over to the story corner and went to sleep. No one was sure what to do. There weren't any rules about lions in the library, so they kind of let him go. There he is, asleep in the story section. I think I'd let him go too. I'd be kind of scared. Soon it was time for story hour. There weren't any rules about lions in story hour either. The story lady seemed a little nervous though, but she read out the first book's title in a good clear voice, and the lion looked up. The story lady kept on reading. The lion stayed for the next story. And the story after that. He waited for another story, but the children started to walk away. Sorry, I have a tickle in my throat. Story hour is over, a little girl told him. It's time to go. The lion looked at the children. He looked at the story lady. He looked at the closed books, and then he roared very loudly. Miss Merriweather came striding out of her office. Who is making that noise? She demanded. It's the lion, said Mr. McBee. Miss Merriweather marched over to the lion. If you cannot be quiet, you will have to leave, she said in a very stern voice. Those are the rules. The lion kept on roaring. He sounded like he was really sad as he was roaring. The little girl tugged on Miss Merriweather's dress. If he promises to be quiet, can he come back for story hour tomorrow? She asked. The lion stopped roaring. He looked at Miss Merriweather for the answer. Miss Merriweather looked back at him. Then she said, yes. A nice, quiet lion would certainly be allowed to come back for story hour tomorrow. Hooray! Said the children. A lion that likes stories, huh? The next day, the lion came back. You are early, said Miss Merriweather. Story hour is not until 3 o'clock. The lion did not budge. He just sat there. Very well, said Miss Merriweather. You might as well make yourself useful. She sent him off to dust the encyclopedias until it was time for story hour. Look how he's dusting. He's using his tail. What a good idea, right? The next day, the lion came early again. This time, Miss Merriweather asked him to lick all the envelopes for the overdue notices. That's a good job for a lion with a big tongue, huh? Soon, the lion began doing things without even being asked. He dusted the encyclopedias, he licked the envelopes, he let small children stand on his back to reach books on the highest shelves, and then he would curl up in the story corner to wait for story hour to begin. He's kind of making himself at home there, isn't he? At first, people in the library were nervous about having a lion there, but soon they got used to having him around. In fact, he seemed very well suited for the library. His big feet were quiet on the library floor. He made a comfy backrest for children at story hour, and he never roared in the library anymore. What a helpful lion, people said. They patted his soft head as he walked by. How did we ever get along without him? Mr. McBee scowled when he heard that. They'd always gotten along fine before. No lions were needed in the library. Lions, he thought, could not understand rules. They did not belong here. I think he's following the rules pretty well. One day, after he had dusted all the encyclopedias and licked all the envelopes and helped all the small children, the lion padded down the hall to Miss Merriweather's office to see what else there was to do. There was still some time left before story hour. Hello, lion, said Miss Merriweather. I know something you can do. You can bring a book back into the stacks for me. Let me just get it down from this shelf. Miss Merriweather stepped up onto the step stool. The book was just out of reach. Miss Merriweather stood on her toes. She stretched out her fingers. Almost there, she said. And then Miss Merriweather stretched a little too far. What do you think's going to happen? Ouch! Said Miss Merriweather softly. She did not get up. Mr. McBee! She called after a minute. Mr. McBee! But Mr. McBee was at the circulation desk and he could not hear her calling. Lion, said Miss Merriweather, please go and get Mr. McBee. The lion ran down the hall. No running, said Miss Merriweather. I think he should run. She might be hurt. The lion put his big front paws, see those? Up on the circulation desk and looked at Mr. McBee, and he said, "Go away, lion. I'm busy." The lion whined. He pointed his nose down the hall toward Miss Merriweather's office, but Mr. McBee ignored him. Finally, the lion did the only thing he could think of to do. He looked Mr. McBee right in the eye, and then he opened his mouth very wide, and guess what he did? He roared very, very loudly. So loud that knocked Mr. McBee's glasses right off of his head. Now Mr. McBee gasped. "You're not being quiet," he said to the lion. "You're breaking the rules." Mr. McBee walked down the hall as fast as he could. The lion did not follow, though. He had broken the rules. He knew what that meant. He hung his head and walked toward the doors. Mr. McBee did not notice this was going on. "Miss Merriweather," he called as he walked. "Miss Merriweather, the lion broke the rules. The lion broke the rules." Mr. McBee doesn't realize why. Is it okay sometimes to break the rules for a good cause? He was trying to help Miss Merriweather, correct? He burst into her office, and there she was. "Miss Merriweather," he said. "Sometimes," said Miss Merriweather from the floor behind her desk, "there is a good reason to break the rules, even in the library. Now please go call a doctor. I think I've broken my arm." Mr. McBee ran to call the doctor. "No running," Miss Merriweather said. Oh, it's kind of funny, huh? The next day, things seemed to be back to normal. Almost. Miss Merriweather's left arm was in a cast. The doctor had told her not to work too hard. "I will have my lion to help me," Miss Merriweather thought. But guess who didn't come to the library that morning? Do you know why he didn't come to the library? Yes, because he knew he was going to be in trouble. At 3 o'clock, Miss Merriweather walked over to the story corner, and guess who she usually would find there? The story lady was just beginning a story for the children, and the lion was not there. People in the library kept looking up from their books and computer screens, hoping that they would see a familiar furry face. But the lion did not come in that day. The lion did not come in the next day or the next day after that. So what did they do to the poor lion? They made him feel bad, but now what happened? They miss him, don't they? Now look at Miss Merriweather's face. And I think Mr. McBee feels bad too. One evening, Mr. McBee stopped by Miss Merriweather's office on his way out. "Can I do anything before I go, Miss Merriweather?" he asked her. "No, thank you," said Miss Merriweather. She was looking out the window. Her voice was very quiet, even for the library. Mr. McBee frowned as he walked away. He thought there probably was something he could do for Miss Merriweather after all. What do you think he's going to do? Buy her some flowers? Mr. McBee left the library. But he did not go home. Where do you think he's going? He walked around the neighborhood. He looked under cars, he looked behind the bushes, he looked in the backyards, the trash cans, and even the tree houses. What's he looking for? Finally, he found what he was looking for. Because he had circled all the way back to the library, and guess who was sitting at the front door? He was looking through the glass. "Well, hello, Lion," said Mr. McBee. The lion didn't turn around, though. "I thought you might like to know," said Mr. McBee, "that there's a new rule in the library. No roaring allowed, unless you have a very good reason for it. Say, if you're trying to help a friend who's been hurt, for example, then it's okay." The lion's ears twitched. He turned around, but Mr. McBee was already walking away. The next day, Mr. McBee walked down the hall to Miss Merriweather's office. "What is it, Mr. McBee?" asked Miss Merriweather in her new sad voice. "I thought you might like to know," said Mr. McBee, "that there's a lion in the library." Miss Merriweather jumped up from her chair and ran down the hall. "Mr. McBee!" "No running!" he called after her. Miss Merriweather didn't listen to him this time. And look at that. Everyone was excited to see the lion. And the lesson is, sometimes there's a good reason to break the rules, even in the library. I got lots of information from that. I got a lesson. Sometimes it's okay to break the rules for a good cause, right? The other thing is that library lion loved books. He also liked to be helpful. And a good place for liking books and being helpful was the library. I hope you enjoy books as much as the lion, and I hope you come back for more stories. Have a great summer, boys and girls. Bye.